Quick content warning: this contains talk of self-harm. Hello everyone, it's Sophia, and here's my final presentation. So I'll be talking about how Elisabetta Serrani's painting, Portia Wounding Her Thigh, goes against the conventions of the Baroque era by depicting the monstrous feminine through a feminist lens where monstrosity equates to strength and power. So the Baroque era is from 1600 to 1750. It's also known as post-Renaissance, and it's known for its usage of deep and dark colors, lots of contrast, grandeur, lots of expression of drama with expressive emotional faces on the figures, and lots of movement. So from my research, I've realized that majority of Baroque paintings, the women in them seem to be either absent, or they're portrayed as angelic, or they're portrayed as like demonic and monstrous. So in The Night Watch by Rembrandt, we can see that it's majority just male figures besides the one kind of like angelic figure in the middle. And then in The Judgment of Paris, there's many female figures, but they're kind of on display for the male figures, and pretty sure this was like depicting a beauty contest between Greek goddesses. And then we also see Medusa in the corner, who is known as like a villain, monstrous figure in Greek mythology. Then we have the girl with the pearl earring. This one, it's kind of like less obvious of what it's trying to portray, but it's like this mysterious fictional woman who is kind of just luring you in to look at her. And then this is Witches at Their Incantations by Salvatore Rosa. And this shows women in a very demonic light. They're performing like satanic rituals. And then in contrast with that, Elisabetta Serrani's work is very different in its way that it portrays women. So today I'll be focusing on her painting Portia Wounding Her Thigh, which she created in 1664, and it's oil on canvas, and it's 101 by 138 centimeters. So what do we see? In the front, we see a large female figure who is Portia. Her clothing is very elegant and royal. She has porcelain white skin. We see blood on her thigh. Her face is kind of like expressionless, or it could be seen as like a calm expression, and she's holding up this sharp object. And then we see the four figures in the background who are behind like an open curtain, and there's three women who seem to be sewing and conversing, and they're also dressed in gowns, but theirs are a lot simpler than Portia's. Also, I thought that that was a man in the corner, but the figure's kind of behind the curtain, so I can't fully tell. So what can we infer from this? Well, because of the clothing, Portia seems to be of a higher status than the figures in the back. And Portia's expression can show that she's withstanding pain, and also, I mean, just the obvious fact of like her holding up the sharp object and the blood on her thigh, it's inferring that she is the one who is stabbing herself. Also, she's doing it in private, and there's no figures seen looking at her or with her, and we're kind of just voyeurs in this private moment with her. And then the woman in the back, it's also important to note that they're performing traditionally feminine domestic tasks. So the story that gives context to this painting is Life of Brutus by Plutarch. So Portia is the wife of Brutus, and she's daughter of an aristocratic family. So that explains why she looks of higher status than the other women in the painting. So in the story, she's expected to remain domestic and subservient to her husband. And Marcus Brutus, he's a Roman consul, and he plans to kill the Roman general Julius Caesar for the good of Rome. So Portia gets fed up with being subservient and domestic, and so she performs this act of self-harm to prove herself worthy of being a confidant to her husband Brutus on his mission to kill Caesar. So this is where monstrosity comes to play in the painting. It has like a disturbing nature to it, but when I looked at it, it didn't immediately strike me as monstrous, and it's definitely not as demonic and extreme as something like Rosa's painting. So what's disturbing about the painting? The bright red blood really stands out against like her pale thigh. The sharp object she has raised high above her thigh, which insinuates that she's like forcefully stabbing herself, and even insinuates like a repetitive penetration of her thigh since there already is blood on it, but she's raising it up ready again to stab herself. And besides that, her figure feels very still. This is different. Sorry if you can hear that, like leaf blower. This is different than like the movement that's popular in Baroque work, but it's also just disturbing that she's like so calm and still while stabbing herself. So her lack of expression, again, disturbing how calm she is while doing this. And it's also different from Baroque paintings because they're kind of known for like their dramatic emotional expressions. Also, she's in private, yet there are people nearby. So it's kind of disturbing that, they're so close to her, yet they don't know what's going on through that curtain. And also just the fact that we're voyeurs in this painting and we're really close up to her while she's doing this. So I thought I'd bring in the theory of objection because it kind of helps explain what is monstrous about this. So this comes from Powers of Heart, an essay on objection by Julia Kristeva. The theory explains why things are perceived as repulsive, horrific, or threaten integrity of the self. So objection is like a disturbance and a boundary between something like self and other, life and death, etc. And objection is what is going against what is normal, pure, comfortable. So wounds are a form of the abject because they're, a literal break in the border between like the self and the outside world. The leaf blower, I can't. But they also represent mortality or a threat to identity. So in the painting, um, Portia wounding herself is like a disruption in the boundary between the inside and outside of her body. But also, and this is getting into where the feminist reading comes into play. Um, by doing this, she's disrupting the norms of femininity. She's expected to be subservient, but she's taking the action to acquire agency. And also, her wounding can be seen as cathartic, which Kristeva also goes into this about how wounds can be seen as something cathartic, um, and objection in general, because in this case, she's using this to show her strength. So, in conclusion, monstrosity in Serrani's painting, we can use objection to analyze it, and the act of wounding itself, as well as what it stands for, is going against the conventions of femininity. Monstrosity does not always have to be in a negative connotation, which is what this painting can be used to show. With the context of the story of Life of Brutus by Plutarch, Portia's monstrosity can be seen as a symbol of her strength and resilience. But I'm starting to think about without background knowledge, since some people during the 17th century and also today may not be well versed in classical literature. So in this case, Portia could be seen in a negative way as like this deranged woman who is wounding her thigh for kind of no reason, and also just the fact that she's positioned against these women who are performing like the ideals of femininity and just performing their domestic duties. Okay, so that's all for my presentation. Thank you for listening. Um, Here's just some additional sources that I'm thinking of using. But that's it. Thank you.